I call it just the brain integration tool. That's what I like to call it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like really powerful work.
Yeah, it is.
That's incredible.
Yes.
All right, so I'm just getting the tech going here. I'm sure everyone is watching. Just
really powerful work.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just getting the tech going here. I'm sure everyone is watching. Just
really powerful work.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That's incredible.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually stop the.
So I'm just getting the tech going here.
Oh, Mary, you can just exit out of YouTube.
Yeah, I'm stopping it. So hi everyone, technical difficulties. Okay, so we are live. So we're live, but I was like listening to an echo of myself, and well, I'm not ashamed of it because I'm just like, I'm going through tech resistance. So you just saw some tech hiccups there, but I'm gonna go ahead and present here. All right. And let me know if everyone can see my screen or not.
I cannot right now.
Okay, 1 second. Here we are. Perfect. And then, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Awesome, great. So technology will not ruin the revolution. We are here, we are live. I'm gonna go ahead and start recording to the cloud and introduce everyone. So hello everyone, welcome to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie. I'm super excited to jump into today's chat. We've been chatting a little offline. We've got some really amazing people here who are joining us live from all over the world. We got to chat a little bit to see some background information on people. So we're gonna dive into some of these questions. We have a guest speaker here who I'm excited to learn more about. And she's gonna actually, highlight some of the things that you all have written in the chat who have called live so that we can really dive into some of these questions. I'm really interested in seeing everyone, make more money and help the world become a better place, being really active in this revolution, being mindful and, figuring out how we can be the best at what we do and, show empathy and all of that. So we've been talking a little offline about all that. So that's why I just wanted to say that I'm excited to join you today. We have a really great opportunity. So this is live. And if you want to ever turn your cameras on or take yourselves off of mute, you're more than welcome to. We don't want you to just sit and listen to us speak at you. We want to be open in this dialogue. So if you have any background information that you want to share, I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of this chat, but share your voice, lift your voice, and let's learn together. So if anyone wants to write me anonymously, you're welcome to do that. I want to keep our guest speaker free so that she can be present as she's presenting and doesn't need to kind of toggle back and forth between the chat box and watching us. So just write me anonymously if anything is really sensitive. And then the last thing that I'll say is that this is being recorded. So I invite you to be present. I know we're living in a world of multitasking and being really good at that, but if we could just honor this time that we're taking the hour out of our day and learn with each other, that would be great. So I'm already saying a lot, but I just wanted to have everyone, feel free to share their voice. Jessica, you are one of the coolest people I've met in a long time. I got to chat with her offline and I was looking at her Instagram. I was telling her that I'm like not a big fan of Instagram so much, and I'm sure she'll jump into the importance of like needing to be in social media. So you'll be able to whip me back into shape. But I got all these like warm and fuzzy feelings because I saw the content that she was posting and how she really is, trying to share her voice in a very positive way. As we know, the world is pretty upside down right now. So I'm excited to hear what she's got to share today with us. And I'm not going to read what's on the screen. Jessica, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us how you came to know about Power to Fly, what you're excited to share, and anything you want to start us off with.
Yeah, so it's sort of funny, I actually connected for the first time with Power to Fly. I had a conversation with, maybe it was Nicole or someone named Lauren when I was in Italy. So that was September of last year. And I think I had reached out to ask about what these Q&As are all about. And so I actually did then did a Q&A when I was in Spain. So that was maybe October or November of last year. So that's how I initially connected with Power to Fly. So I was traveling for 8 months. That's sort of the basis of what we're going to talk about today in 2019, which so many people have said to me, like, holy crap, thank God you did that, because if like literally my husband and I traveled together and we left on, I think it was like April 8th or April 10th of last year. So like really like when COVID was getting big and scary. And I just keep saying to people, like, that's the proof that if you want to do something and you can, like, do it now. Don't wait. If we had waited an extra year, we wouldn't have done it. And that trip literally changed my life. The person you're seeing here is completely different from the person who even did the first Power to Fly Q&A. So I'm really excited to talk about it and just share with you guys a few like businessy things. I did just publish my first book. I wrote a larger, like regular size book while I was traveling that I'll be, my agent will be pitching to publishers this fall. This book is a tiny little one. It's less than 40 pages long. And it was just inspired by a lot of the questions that have like really helped me direct my life at times when it might be hard to find answers. And the idea being, you know, let's stop accepting the status quo. Let's stop saying that's just how it is and start asking questions and figuring out what the hell it is that we want and how we can get it. I also have a podcast, Mindset Reset Radio, which I love doing. If any of you are on here and you have any sort of topics about living with intention, definitely shoot me a message on Instagram or wherever. I'd love to talk with you about having you as a guest. And then also finally, for those entrepreneurs on here, I just launched an Mindset Mastery and Instagram strategy membership program. So it's a mix of like coaching and training, because if you want to really kick butt on social media, you have to also, you can't just have the strategy right. You have to also get your head right, because there's so many limiting beliefs and fears and anxieties and worries around social media. So I'm super excited. Our first call for that is August 5th. And right now there is a founding members deal, just $18.99 a month instead of $25.99 a month. So if you're interested in that, I'm at Jessica Thiefels on Instagram. Go check it out. Shoot me a message. And that's me. That's all the things, I guess.
Yes. Okay, great. So August 5th is my birthday, so maybe I'll treat myself. And it's funny because I've worked in marketing for years, and I guess it's just I'm at the time in my relationship with social media where I'm like, okay, mark the big, scarlet letter on me. And I'm sure that you can help me with that on my birthday. So thank you for mentioning your awesome, work that you're doing now. Let's jump right into some of your questions. We will have an hour to flow through your questions one by one. You all have submitted some great questions offline. But if you dreamt about something last night or you want to like dive in deeper, feel free to share your voice. We are really, wanting to have this be an open dialogue. I can't stress that enough. So, take yourselves off of mute at any time or turn your cameras on anytime. Visibility is key. And let's jump right into this first question here. And actually, before I jump into the question, I'm going to just flag some of the things people have written in the chat box. You can also keep that in mind. So we have a software developer currently transitioning into UI UX design, currently freelancing as a writer during this transition period, thinking of trying to put up an online business, but I'm not really sure I know enough to start. Tuning in from Manhattan, what's up? I'm a musical theater performer and freelance event manager. Awesome, I studied theater as well. I'm a photographer and writer learning to grow my freelance business for communications for social impact organizations. Awesome. Okay, so Jessica, this question here. What made you decide to go with the business idea you had over the other ideas that may have come up?
I mean, I'm going to be totally honest with you all and just say that that was my career. Organic content marketing is what I knew how to do. It's what I'm a writer at heart. But I quickly realized that the way to make money in the writing industry is to move into marketing. And so social media marketing just sort of fell on my lap in the very first job that I had. I was so green and so new, and everyone on my team got fired except for me. So my boss was like, hey, do you want to do social media marketing? And I'm like, I've never done that in my life, but sure, let's figure it out. So I just sort of very much learned on the job with everything that I do. And I had gotten many, many years down the line, many jobs later. I think I had 6 jobs in 7 years. I was in a position, I was working remote, I was managing my own time, and I was working contracts. So I was essentially self-employed. And I started just sort of very organically taking on clients, like as people were reaching out to me and asking me to help with them with things. Did that as a side hustle for 2.5 years. And then got myself into a full-time VP position, making more money than I ever made in my life. And so I'm like, this is amazing. And 6 months later was miserable, wildly unhappy, was not the position for me. And I realized I really wanted to do my own thing. And I already sort of had this side business going. So I actually pulled back to part-time with them. And 3 weeks later, they fired me. Because I think basically what my boss said, who actually was a good friend of mine, is a good friend of mine, was that the CEO was worried that I wasn't committed. And I was like, he's kind of right. I'm kind of not. I don't really want to be doing this. I was just afraid to walk away from the money totally and like fully have faith in my business to build it. And so I was sort of in a position where it was like, okay, look for work or take this business full time. So it was a Friday. That following Monday, which was like 2 years ago last week, I think it was July 1st. I sat down at my desk as a full-time business owner and I was like, let's do this. If I can put 40 hours a week into this, I'm pretty sure I can make it work. And I have. So that was sort of how it happened. It wasn't really a choice.
I love that. And I love that you brought up your roots as far as your passion and how you said, you know, I'm a writer at heart, and how you allowed that to take you into basically, you know, where you are now. So that's also a testament, because I know that a lot of us try to, you know, push ourselves into a corner to be something that we're not. And then we are, you know, miserable. But on top of that, we're not doing the thing that we're passionate about. So yeah. I commend you for that. And again, if this was your question that you all submitted offline, or you want to add more, feel free to jump in at any point. I'm excited to hear a little bit about this photo here. So you want to tell us about this picture?
Oh my God, this picture makes my heart so happy. All my travel pictures do. This is my husband and I riding camels in Morocco. It was one of our last stops, actually. South Africa was the last 3 weeks of our trip. And we asked ourselves every day why the hell we decided to do South Africa last, because we were so burnt out. We'd been traveling at that point for almost a full 8 months. And South Africa was probably the hardest place of every place we went to. The culture was completely different. For example, gyms were separate. So because we were living on the road, we were living like we normally would. So we went to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, you know, found the closest organic grocery store, that sort of thing. And in South Africa, for example, or not South Africa, Northern Africa, we went to go to the gym and the guy was like, women can't come here. And we were like, we had sort of read about it, but someone told us that gym near us would be okay. And it was not. And he was like, there's a gym for women up around the corner if you want to go there. So my husband and I walk over there, and they allowed only women at that one particular gym, like 2 days a week or something. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was nice because there was like practically no one in the gym. So as someone who loves the gym, it was great to just like have everything to myself. But they also, English was not really the second language. The first language was usually like either French or a native language. And then the second language was like flipped. So English was like a third or fourth language. So we were able to get around the whole world with only speaking English, but it was really difficult there. But this was, we left from Marrakesh. We started in Tangier, went to Marrakesh, and then took this tour, and it was super cool. The camels are crazy. They make lots of noises. They're very, very vocal. And they chew. They have like the ropes in their mouth that are sort of keeping them together, and they're just constantly chewing on the ropes. And they also just poop constantly while they walk, which is like gross, but also hilarious. So you're just like behind the camel and it's just going and you're just walking. And we took a camel ride with, I think there was probably 15 of us, into a desert camp, stayed at the desert camp that night, had like a fire and like music and dancing around the fire and stuff. And then woke up at sunrise and took the camels back into the area, got back on our bus, and went back on our way. It was super, super cool. Definitely one of those moments where I'm like, I'm riding it. Like, I kept like closing my eyes and just like breathing the moment in. I'm like, I'm riding a camel through the Sahara Desert right now. Like, what is my life? It was pretty awesome.
Wow. So speaking of the world and being global, I just want to shout out some folks that are here live with us. So as I said, I'm calling from Buenos Aires. We have Jessica calling from Vermont. We've got someone from Philippines, Buenos Aires, Seattle, Washington, Brazil. We have, where else here? Dallas, Texas, Manhattan. We have Norway. Where else do we have? Okay, if you've joined us after we kind of did our call outs, please, Colorado, awesome. Let us know where you're calling from. Mexico, great, keep it coming. And then again, if you joined us a little after my introduction, feel free to unmute yourselves at any time. And if this was your question, feel free to jump in. So, hey, San Francisco, awesome. Let's jump into this one. So what challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? And I know that you just walked us through this beautiful moment of you as a woman in the world. How do you use those moments to, recharge to then, kick ass again? How do you channel that? How do you release just to like get to where you are today?
Yeah. So I guess if we're talking about challenges, working while traveling, I guess, should we say that? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What specifically. Well, challenges specifically to running my business while traveling. Guys, I hate to say it, but it was really easy. I think probably the biggest challenge was allowing myself to be less regimented and more flow-based. So, for example, in Northern Africa, you really, at least where the few places we were, you really didn't want to go out at night. You could, and you'd probably be fine, but it was like questionable. So rather than working during the day and going out at night, which is what we would do in most places, we went out during the day and explored during the day and then worked at night. So normally that's probably something I would never do here, like at home, but it just made sense. And also like flowing with the weather. So knowing like, okay, we only have 3 days left in this location and it's supposed to rain 2 of those days. The one day it's not going to rain, let's make sure we aren't working that day so we can actually get out and explore and enjoy. So learning how to flow was definitely key. And then just, I've been with my husband for it'll be 15 years this year. We've been together since high school. So but we haven't like lived like literally 24/7 side by side, no one else, just me and him, in small apartments and studios. And he was also working freelance. He works for my company. So that was probably the biggest challenge. Like work was pretty easy, but like being able to be together constantly and being able to say, like, he's very like, he wants to always be moving. And I'm more like easing into more of a chill life. So it was really hard to sometimes have to be like, you just got to go explore by yourself this afternoon. Like I want to lay in the apartment and close the shades and watch a rom-com because like I'm burning the candle at both ends and I really need to make space to just like reconnect and chill out and not be working and not be adventuring and not be researching to find the next restaurant. And
Yeah, I think that's interesting that, especially coming from the States, we tend to like the structure of working, of productivity, it does have you kind of burn out on both ends. So it's interesting to like that you have your challenge is to be more to slow down like the rhythm and just to be more productive in another way, right? So someone here has written in the chat box, are you two business partners? And I think that they're referring to your husband.
Technically, he's co-owner of my business. We say that I'm the CEO and he's the CFO because he's the CFO of my life. Like I just don't do money. So I have a bookkeeper, I have a CPA, and I have my husband. You learn as a business owner to delegate the things you're not good at or that you don't like doing, and money is one of them. But then he does, we actually don't really have any overlapping clients, but he does product marketing, UX, and web design.
Awesome. And you all work together as well. Sometimes I heard you say that when you all got home at night, you would kind of simultaneously work. So you're with your partner and your coworker essentially in the middle of a different place. So much props to that.
Yeah, it's good to have someone I trust to like bounce ideas off of. And like with launching this new membership program, he just designed me a brand new website that we're going to throw up that's like branded marketingfromthegut.com. And he just did that like for 3 hours yesterday and 2 hours this morning and shipped it off to a developer. So it's also nice just to have that support and not have to do everything myself.
So I'm gonna play the devil's advocate and ask you, because I know we got some independent mamas and independent, meaning, you know, they don't have a partner in this moment of their life. So would you say that, what's some advice you can give from that perspective so that they don't experience burnout? And do you, just because, you know, we're in a totally different place in the world, where a lot of people are just reshaping their ideas on everything. So what do you think about like walking up to someone and saying, you know, like, you want to travel, I want to travel, let's, you know, do this together, and try to take it from that. I mean, I'm just super going on the other side just to like get a reaction out of our live callers as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, I know a girlfriend of mine traveled in Australia. This was a few years ago, for 6 or 8 months. And she was traveling by herself. So there's a number of websites that are totally credible, that are like social sites for solo travelers looking for people to travel with. And she actually connected with 2 other girls, one from the UK and one from Canada. And they all met in Australia for the first time. They'd never met before. And they traveled together in a van for like 6 months. So, and also, I mean, I met so many solo travelers while we were traveling. We actually met this girl named Jackie, who's from New Zealand. She was traveling by herself. The 3 of us were on a Croatia cruise together. And we became like really good friends. And so she actually came after the 3 of us joined up, and we did like a 2-week road trip through Croatia together. So it's totally possible to travel by yourself, and especially in Europe, like it's very safe. There's so many people. You feel like, you know, you don't feel alone. I never, ever once felt scared while I was traveling. And like, there'd be times when I'd walk around by myself and Ben would maybe go to the gym and I didn't want to or something. So it's totally possible to do it by yourself. Of course, it's helpful to have someone, and I'm immensely beyond grateful to have Ben, and the fact that we do similar things. We're very similar people. But don't let not having a partner dash your dreams of traveling, because it's very, very much possible without having someone with you.
Yeah, and actually someone here has written in the chat box here, love solo traveling. I did 8 months in South America, but was never really on my own. Right. And I find too, like with the different ways you can co-work in different places, I end up meeting some of the coolest people that, you know, maybe I would not have met if I hadn't gone in there on my own to like, you know, get that energy of working together. We'll see how everything is now after COVID, but you know, now we're doing these digital ways as well. So actually speaking of COVID, whenever you want, you can throw in some tips about, you know, COVID and how to continue to run a successful business and all that jazz. Someone here has written in the chat, what kind of business do you run? Sorry, I joined a bit late, so might have missed it. So if you want to refresh your memory there.
Yeah, just a quick refresher. I run an organic content marketing agency. So I do consulting with stuff like SEO, social media marketing, content creation. So like blog content, landing page creation. And then I also do marketing coaching. So I tend to work with entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to figure out how to do social media and marketing, because it can feel like, where do I even begin? So I help them understand how to do what I do. So I teach them how to create a strategy and set goals and get really intentional about their marketing so they can actually, you know, see results from their efforts.
Thank you for that.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Do you mind, Mariella, if I ask?
Go for it.
I think it could be considered a challenge. Are you an LLC, or how are you set up, and how do you do your taxes? Like, are you paying in a state and for the states, you know, federal, state, like where are you registered, that stuff? And if you're going to cover that later, then we can talk about it later.
Yeah, unless there was a question, I probably wouldn't have. I'm an S Corp. I did that just because of the way it works taxes wise, and in terms of how much you pay yourself, and then you can take distributions basically to fill that in. And I'm registered actually in California, but living in Vermont because I lived in San Diego for the last 9 years, and that's where I started my business. But then I moved to Vermont, which is where we're both from. And so technically my business is considered a foreign entity in Vermont. So I actually don't know. See, I told you guys I'm not the CFO of this company. I actually don't know how the taxes are going to shake out in terms of which state I'm paying taxes in. But when we were traveling, we still had our permanent residence in San Diego because we owned a home. And that was also my business address. So we just paid, regular state and federal taxes, even though we were traveling for a majority of the year. Having a CPA, I could not possibly recommend it more. I did it even before going full time in my business, just when I was running it on the side. And if you have someone good, it's the best decision you'll make in your business, because you're going to make sure you're avoiding any fees and penalties if you miss anything. Plus, they're going to make sure you get the absolute most at tax time and owe the absolute least. And I've been so lucky to have this really amazing CPA who's been in the business for 40 years, wicked smart. And it feels really nice to have that support, because the financial stuff can be really challenging to figure out.
Awesome. So if anyone wants to connect with Jessica, I'm sure she's going to give her information later, and you can pick her mind a little more about that. Maybe get connected with this awesome CPA and go on your way there. Can you speak a little bit about this photo here?
Yeah, this was in Italy, as was probably at one of the most amazing Airbnbs I've ever stayed at in my entire life. And I just shared this with your team because in Italy, I was really living my best life. We were having spritzer. That's an Aperol spritz, which for anyone who is new to that is a little bit of Prosecco, a lot of bit of Aperol, and a little bit of mineral water. Throw in some ice, and you have the most refreshing drink you've ever had in your life. And we were having them we would go through a bottle of Prosecco at least once a day. And so I was just working and drinking my spritz. I think I'm on Twitter in that picture. So I'm big on Twitter. I like using it. So I was probably doing some sort of engagement, and just my in-laws and my brother-in-law were there at the time. And so I was just working, I think, for the day while they were off adventuring. It was a very nice life. I miss it.
So I have a quick tech question, since everyone saw the tech floozy I did today. And it happens all the time, and especially when you're traveling. So how do you overcome those kinds of challenges when you are running your business, traveling the world? Maybe the tech is not available or super expensive. And how do you recommend someone preparing for that?
Well, you just get really resourceful. We stayed in Airbnbs the whole time because we were traveling for so long. We wanted to have access to a kitchen and space where we could work, and we didn't have to go out to a coffee shop every single day if we didn't want to. Whereas couch surfing or in a hotel or something, we couldn't do that. So there was always Wi-Fi. Whether or not it was good is the question. So we also had, I think it's called a Sky Roam. It's a little orange thing like this that gives you Wi-Fi. But it's based on the cell network. So we would use that when we had to. For example, in Northern Africa, the Wi-Fi was the worse than anywhere else we went, to the point that Ben and I couldn't both be using the Wi-Fi at the same time. And even then with just one person, it was questionable. So we would have the Sky Roam going, and you have to pay. The Sky Roam's actually unnecessarily expensive. But you have to pay a decent amount per day to use it. You can't just use it for a certain amount of time and only pay for that. So you pay for a 24-hour period. And so we would just I think we paid for 2 weeks of using it every single day, because we would need one of us on the Sky Roam and one of us on the actual Wi-Fi to be able to both work. And then traveling, actually a lot of trains have Wi-Fi. So we did a ton of work while we traveled. In Europe, we took trains everywhere. I've worked on trains, buses, cars, boats, planes. That's pretty much it. but you get used to finding the places where you're going to be able to pick up good Wi-Fi. So like cafes, and trains often actually have decent Wi-Fi, but you're going so fast through so many different locations that you sort of, like, I would plan for that day, because I was writing a book, I would plan for that day to be just a book writing day. And I would just like work on my book for 5 hours, because I could do that offline with Google Docs. I didn't need internet to do it. So also part of it is like not counting on having Wi-Fi while you're traveling, while you're on a travel day, for example, so that you're not totally screwed when it doesn't work.
Totally. I want to hear more about this book too. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that later too. Let's go into this next question. So how do you deal with rejection and not lose sight of your motivation while starting a business?
Yeah, this is a really great question for me right now, because I'm actually shifting out of my consulting business. My ideal situation is I'm really just a full-time author. As I said, I'm a writer at heart, and I kind of got away from that for the last 8 years of my career. And now I'm trying to move back to that. And in doing that, I'm shifting my business to a place where I can still be making money from my marketing business without actually having to do anything. That's the ideal scenario, obviously, as it is for everybody. And in doing that, I launched this membership program, which I was telling everyone about at the beginning, this Instagram strategy and mindset coaching membership program for entrepreneurs. And it's all new. And like the self-doubt is so freaking real. It's not even funny. And I set a wild goal for myself to get 100 women on the very first call on August 5th. It's the first time I've ever done this, guys. And I literally launched it last week. So shooting for the sky, and in shooting for the sky, I am like feeling all the fear. And so in terms of like dealing with the rejection of people saying, I'm not interested, I don't care, leave me alone, don't talk to me. My focus is on a few things. The way that I'm staying motivated is, one, I'm really shifting from this is a challenge, and so I'm backing out, to this is a challenge and I'm taking that on. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn, and I'm going to get 100 women on that call. That's going to happen. And also sticking to my bigger why, which is to elevate the voices of female entrepreneurs who have something to say and who just aren't able to reach those people on Instagram just yet. And so that's like my biggest goal. The overarching goal, which I suppose maybe sounds sort of woo-woo, is to just sort of like raise the vibration of the world. Like the higher vibe we're all at on this call, the higher vibe everyone around us is, and therefore the higher vibe the world is. And so my goal is to elevate the voices of women. And for me, I just keep coming back to that. I keep coming back to like, that's the most important thing. That's what matters most. And really trying to detach from any meaning I'm giving to the self-doubt or the rejection, and just push through. Like, this is a chance to learn. This is a challenge. I'm going to do this. Doesn't matter how long it's going to take. I'm going to figure it out. I have no doubt in my mind. So it's like a bit of forcing the self-belief until you really believe it.
And I love that you say too, your biggest overall goal is to raise the frequency. And I think that is actually, I'm on that boat as well. And I hope that we have a lot of, people like us that are experimenting. You've not done this before, you're setting your goal, you're pushing through it, and you're experimenting. And I think that now is the time to experiment, and from that place of wanting to raise the frequency, because there's so much we can do now. I mean, I think of like some of my idols who made a lot of impact in the world, and they didn't have this in their hands. But then on the other side, it's like, to get really real, it's like, how many people are dying because of mining batteries to make our lives more convenient. So we have a big responsibility for the technology that we're using, for the reach, the impact that we're able to make, and especially if we want to be more global, we have to take that wall down. Especially if we expect other people to take walls down, we have to be the first, and hopefully the butterfly effect, like you said, will happen and the frequency will raise. So I'm totally down with that. And I love that the chat's blowing up and saying very inspiring, everyone. Lovely. Fantastic. Yes. Thinking of the great why and the greater impact is a great motivation. Thank you, Bree, for saying that. So yeah, anything else you want to say about this? Because I know, especially now with all of the heaviness of what's going on in the world, to get a rejection when you're trying to, like, you know, basically share a baby, it can be even more tender than, you know, obviously if this weren't happening. So do you have any like specific kind of, you know, in this moment of COVID advice to give for how to receive rejection?
Totally. I think the key is just to remember that their rejection has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. Especially during COVID, a lot of people are scared right now to invest in something new or to buy a new product. You know, a lot of people are sticking close to the brands that they're loyal to and the companies that they know because there's so much uncertainty and everyone wants less uncertainty in their lives. So knowing that the rejection is very much a reflection of them and whatever they're going through, and not a reflection of the value of your product or service. And if someone does reject you, I highly encourage you to just ask why. You know, just you know, is the price not right? Are you just not interested? Because that's also an incredible learning opportunity to see what maybe you could do to start getting less rejections. So yeah, taking it as a learning opportunity, and also not taking the meaning to your heart, because it's not about you, it's about them.
I love that. And someone here has written, a no is a good gateway to yes. Thanks, Nicole, for that.
Totally.
All right. So tell us a little bit about this photo and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, this one, there's not really much to say other than we were in Interlaken, and we were going to do a hike, and we definitely didn't have boots or winter gear or anything. And this hike we were going to do got a ton of snow the night before. And it was way up in the mountains. And gosh, I, for the life of me, can't remember where exactly it was. But yeah, so we were just freezing. I had a pair of sweatpants in our backpack that I ended up putting on. And I was wearing like 3 shirts underneath that. And we ended up getting to the top, and the woman like looked at my shoes and was like, "You're not doing that hike." And Ben also only had sneakers, and he's like, "You sure?" And she's like, "I'm positive." She's like, there's like this much shorter trail right here that you can get back down to where you started. If you're going to do anything, do that. And we did. And I literally, like, it was full. I mean, it's a ton of snow. I should have shared one of the snow pictures. So we ended up hiking it back down, and I legitimately I think I have a video where I'm like, this is not worth losing my toes for. Like, my feet were completely numb, knee deep in snow. It was beautiful, but very much like the typical traveling for 8 months with a single backpack. You're not really fully prepared for all types of weather. Definitely not snow. It was gorgeous.
Great. It looks beautiful. Okay, let's go into this next question here. What's the biggest piece of advice you can give someone who's trying to start their own business while also trying to travel the world? I mean, you've been talking about this, but do you have anything else specifically that you want to highlight? Yeah,
I would just say really try to get things to at least an initially stable place before leaving. You can totally build your business while you go. My business was growing while I was traveling, and I was working way less hours. So you can absolutely do that. But you want it to be in a pretty stable place so you can actually enjoy it. So you're not stressed the whole time while you're traveling. And I think the other thing would be to consider what you can delegate or outsource. Even on a small budget, bringing in a virtual assistant could be super valuable, so that you can, because you want to be able to enjoy the trip. You don't want to have to be working 40 hours a week. So like when we left, our goal was to work no more than 20 hours a week. And it got down to the point where we were both working probably like 10 hours a week. So, but that was because I have 5 writers and a marketing coordinator, and you know, we have these other people like our CPA and our bookkeeper who sends all of our invoices, so we don't have to worry about that. So getting some of those pieces in place will allow you to continue making money while you go without having all the added stress.
Yeah, I think one thing that you're pointing out too, and that I know as well from traveling, it's like you want to try to minimize the stress, because you got to be ready to have that energy for whatever else the wind blows your way.
And there's going to be stress while you travel. Yeah.
So let's approach this photo from like, what kind of work were you doing in this moment? Do you remember something maybe you were going through as a businesswoman? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, this was on actually that same trip that we rode camels. Those are donkeys in the background. And I mean, in terms of business on this trip, I don't know if it was this day or the next, but I remember we were on a bus with a bunch of people. That's how we were getting to the place where we would get on the camels and then take them into the desert. So it was like a 2-day trip there and then a really long 1-day trip back. And we were on this, like, it was a pretty comfortable bus. But the little trays that came out were like pretty small. And so it made it very cramped, but I'm like, I'm not doing anything. We have decent service. Like, I need to get work done. So I remember like having my like laptop, the one that I'm using now, like on this tiny little thing that barely held it, like trying to get work done while everyone else around me is like sleeping and, you know, whatever, exhausted. And I'm like, I need to get this done. So I think I actually wrote some of my book on that part of the trip and like did some client work. And this was just one of the stops that we bopped off the bus for. That was like this really, really, really cool canyon. And so we just like walked around through the canyon. It was really awesome.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you got to plug in wherever you can. So I'm excited to learn more about your book as well. So I hope that we have some folks on the call who will follow Jessica on her socials and keep up with all the beautiful projects that she's doing, and maybe she can help you with some coaching and things like that so that you can be more comfortable in launching your business or strengthening your business. So let's jump into this question here. So how do you build and maintain client relationships while traveling?
Honestly, in the digital world that we're in, it was really easy. Calls, when I was doing coaching calls, I mean, were a little bit more difficult, but my biggest recommendation for someone who's traveling and like maybe having to take client calls is to really know what you're willing to do. So like I was not willing to take calls at 10 p.m. Because for me, I was still living a regular schedule. So I have this little, what's it called? It's called worldtimebuddy.com. And you can put 4 different time zones in at a time. And so it was just playing the time zone game. Like, what time can you be available? And something I've been like working on, I was working on teaching my husband because he was new to working remote, because before this he worked full-time for a company. Like, don't give the option if you don't want to do it, because then you're just going to be annoyed. So I was really having to say, like, really stick to the times that worked for my schedule. And like, if I had to budge, then I would. So just, I think maintaining client relationships starts with you and, you know, the precedent that you're setting, and making sure that you're not overextending yourself to make sure that clients, you know, make sure you can get them on the phone or something. But email makes it so easy. You know, you can respond any time of day. Most of my clients, I think pretty much none of my clients except for one I've ever met in person. And most we haven't even like had a video call. We've just talked via email. So in my business, it's actually very easy.
Thanks for sharing that. Someone here in the chat, Nicole, has written, I'm learning this myself now. I keep providing times and wishing I didn't. So yeah, honoring your time, right? And your space. Yeah. Great. Let's move into this question here. Do you ever network in person, or do you do everything online?
Well, right now, we're not doing any in-person networking, but in normal life, networking was a huge part of launching my business. When I went full-time, I knew that I needed to start talking to people, and I need to put myself out there. And I'm someone who hates networking. I freaking hate the awkwardness. Like, I'm not someone who's very good at going up to a group of people and just like standing there and waiting for someone to say something to me, or to like just jump into a conversation that's already been happening. But I knew I needed to do that. I had to force myself. So I made a goal to go to one networking event a week for the month of July. And I did, and I actually really liked it. I found some events that I really enjoyed going to. So then I started going all of August. I went one a month. And then I sort of found the networking events that like I really liked, and where I started creating like friendships and connections. And so then I just started going to those each month. So there's probably like 2 or 3 a month that I would go to every month. And then I actually started my own networking group with some female entrepreneurs that I had met called TLC, where we would get together at my house. I had a big, huge, comfy couch. And we would get together at my house, and one of us from the group every month would teach something to the rest of the group. So we would all just like have wine and hang out and connect, and then learn something. So it's super important. The coaching, I didn't do coaching before networking. And my first networking event, I met someone named Justine, and she said, I don't want you to do my social media for me, but can you teach me? And I was like, yeah, I think so. Okay, probably teach you how to do it. Why don't we try it? And I did. And so now it's like a huge part of my business.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting now, what do you predict? Let's throw some predictions, like when everything, starts to move at a different rhythm, after this big crisis. How do you envision networking to be? Because obviously it is a very important part of building your network. And I love that you have an intimate setting with your friends, and that everyone is sharing and educating each other. Do you think that that's maybe where networking will be more, I don't know, will kind of transform into that sort of networking? Or do you think, we'll still be doing these huge conferences or, big kind of gatherings and places? I have no idea, but I wanted to get your opinion.
I think we'll eventually get back to that. There's too much money to be made in those industries, especially the conference industry, for companies to completely write it off. I think eventually, how quickly that will be, I don't know. But I think once there's some sort of actual, like medicine or, whatever, for COVID, I think people are going to be a lot less scared when we like have it more under control. So I think it'll come back for sure. I just don't know when. But according to the, the speaking industry and people that work in that industry, like everyone is still planning big events for 2021. I was just talking to a woman who helps speakers book gigs. Her name is Carrie. And she said like everyone she works with is all still planning their big events for 2021 and still booking speakers. So I think people are feeling pretty positive about it.
Okay, thank you for that prediction. Anyone else in the chat box want to throw in their predictions? Because I know it can go either way. And it'll be interesting as well to see as we get to it opening, because of course things are going to happen eventually. It'll be interesting to see if, like, for example, you doing more of these intimate spaces with like-minded women who have these different opinions as well to share and how to re-educate each other. If that is kind of will be the new black. Yeah, the new black to be like, sharing and growing instead of like, just kind of being, I don't want to say superficial because I love the big conferences as well, but I can't meet all of those people.
I hate big conferences. I don't go to them. I told you I'm not good with networking. But yeah, there's definitely a lot changing and maybe there will be more of a shift into the more intimate spaces and connections, and that would definitely benefit all of us. So.
I think so too. So we have just about, let me look at my clock here, just about 10 more minutes before we end this chat. Time is flying by. So with that said, we're going to go through a couple more questions, but if anyone here wants to take themselves off of mute or to drop some things in chat box, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Nicole, for dropping our LinkedIn's here. So you can contact Jessica on LinkedIn. You have her link here in the chat box. You're also welcome to reach out to me. Some of the things that I work on, one of my service in this moment is to help people come into their voice. So I'm a professional performer, and it comes really easily for me to say what I think and to, be very in tune with emotional intelligence and things like that. And I really feel, especially now in the tech world, we need more people to feel more confident speaking up and to speaking from a place of emotional intelligence. So if anyone needs help activating and being a voice in this revolution, please reach out to me as well. So yeah, thank you. Let's move on to this next question here. So how to form and grow a team when shifting careers, starting from zero and traveling around. I love this. And if you want to just like take your time on this, or, if this was your question and you want to have her dive in a little more, let's use these last minutes to, go out with a bang.
Yeah, that's a big question. All of those things probably, they can kind of happen in tandem. Really growing a team. I mean, if you're in network marketing, you're sort of growing a team from the get-go. That's sort of the goal. But for me, growing a team, so let's say shifting careers, starting from zero and traveling around the world. Yeah, so I would say figure out like your goal before travel. So I always like to talk about goal setting as like Russian nesting dolls. So like, here's your big goal. And like, let's say you have 3 big goals. So break each of those 3 big goals into 3 smaller goals. and then those 3 small goals into 3 smaller goals each. So all of a sudden you have like, 20 or whatever, really small goals that are getting you to the really big ones, because it can feel so daunting to make that happen when really there's all these little tiny steps that have to happen along the way. So if this is you, I would say, step 1 is figure out what the shifting looks like. So where are you going to? What does that mean? Is your first step to start job searching? Is your first step to talk to your boss to see if you can shift jobs within the same organization if you really like your company? And then starting from 0. So in our digital world, it's super easy to start your business while you're working a full-time job. That's what I did. So really leveraging digital to figure out, to just get started, even if you just take on 1 gig, because also it's important to know whether or not you're actually going to like what you're doing if you're completely shifting out of your current role into something new. And gig work is such a good way to get your feet wet and start to understand what it really looks like to be in that business or industry and really run a company from there. And then once you're up and moving in terms of a business, whether you are still working full-time and running it on the side or running it full-time, as soon as you possibly can, I recommend finding some support. I started taking on writers when it got to the point where I literally couldn't get it all done and live sane. Like I was working 12-hour days, going to 1 to 2 networking events, multiple times a week. I really relied on the support that I had, but I needed to bring someone into my business. And so I was like, I can't possibly do this on my own. I have to be willing to part with the money to pay someone. And I was able to grow exponentially from there. So the value in growing a team, even if like something that I actually talk about in this mysterious book that I keep bringing up, is the idea of, if you want to bring on help and you don't know where to start, write a job ad for your life. So like everything that you need help with, from like raking the leaves to managing your inbox, and then take that ad and say, okay, what realistically can I outsource? Like, can I hire the kid from next door to come rake my leaves, once a month for the entire fall for $10 a time? And that's just like, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes out of your week that you don't have to worry about. So you don't always have to be hiring within your business or growing a team within your business to take on support so that you can grow your business further, scale your business. You can bring support in your life. A girlfriend of mine who's like a total badass real estate agent, her and her husband actually, they were good friends of ours, and then they sold us our house and then sold our house for us when we left San Diego. Steal San Diego homes if you're looking in the area. She literally had her assistant also chop her vegetables for the week to prep her food. And I know that sounds absurd, but she was like, there's so many other things that I'd rather be doing than prepping my food for the week. But like, she's like me and has a lot of digestive and health issues. So she needs good food. So it was like a non-negotiable. And she's like, I'd rather pay someone to do that and be able to either do business work or just like take an hour to breathe than to deal with it. So, and then traveling the world just comes as a bonus, and you can do that while you're traveling. Like, you can totally make all these things happen. I brought on more writers while I was traveling. I brought on my marketing coordinator while I was traveling. You can be pretty mobile if you're in a job that you can work remote, or running a company work remote. So I would just say somewhat have your footing on the ground before like buying a one-way ticket and heading out.
I love that you bring the team to like lifestyle and work style, so that, the balance can hopefully eventually happen where you're not just consumed with having no time for yourself. And I want to, before we go into this next question, because we've just got a couple more minutes left, I wanted to ask you, because there are some programs that I'm familiar with here living in Buenos Aires. I think it's called Unsettled or Remote Year. I mean, I'm sure eventually they'll kick back up again. And they were people who wanted to like just take their business on the road and have, a place where they could be for a month with Unsettled, or for a year with Remote Year. And we were doing some things with them, because what I found beautiful is that these people that were traveling wanted to like give back to the community, and like, support local, and, try to cut down their carbon footprint in different ways, and finding different resources to do just that awareness of, okay, I'm going out into the world. How can I like I need to be in the digital space, but how can I also try to make an impact, you know, in the physical space? So I don't know if you have anything you wanted to share regarding that, how people can start to just kind of be aware as they are traveling and making money for themselves and, you know, giving back to the world. Did you want to share any tips or something that has personally happened to you?
In terms of giving back while traveling?
Yeah, or just being like, I don't know, if you had, you are meeting like local people, if you, I don't know, I find that sometimes like you end up looking like just a collaboration with different clothes that you purchase and supporting like, I don't know, different people that are making different kinds of clothing that are there, you know, from the country.
Yeah, we definitely tried to like buy local. We tried to do a lot of the local things. So we didn't really do like the top 10 TripAdvisor stuff. We really tried to figure out like where are people not going to be. That's where we want to be, which is why actually Italy was so hard because it's right during tourist season and it was so busy with so many people. And we definitely tried to buy local stuff to support the local artists. It was hard though because we're traveling with one backpack, so you can only have so much stuff. And unfortunately, in a lot of places, like especially in Asia, the quality is just really low. And I'm like, I don't really like want to buy something that's not really nice. But like in Marrakesh on that trip we were on, we met like there's tons of rug makers in Northern Africa, and we met a lot of rug makers, and you would get it at like a crazy good price, like something that you would pay like let's say $10,000 here you could get for like, you know, $150. But it was like at that time we were also moving, so we didn't want to get anything, so we didn't know where we were going to be ending up when we came back, and it's just like a hassle. Like shipping is, I don't recommend it. So expensive and so difficult. Ben went on many a journey trying to ship things at like local postal offices that like just did not end well. So yeah, we definitely kept that in mind for sure. And you just have to be willing to dig a little bit to find like the local stuff and the local opportunities. I don't think we like volunteered anywhere, anything on that trip actually. So I can't really speak to that, but there are so many opportunities, and there are a lot of companies like Wi-Fi Tribe is another one of the ones where you can travel with a group, and I think they build some of that like, you know, local connections and support and volunteering into their programs.
Cool. Okay, thanks for sharing that. So actually, instead of reading what's on the screen here, I'm going to read what Anna here has written in the chat box. We can get her question answered before we wrap up. So when you first started your business as a side hustle, how did you get clients, and what was it that made you then choose over someone else?
Choosing one, well, I didn't really choose. I chose all the clients. Any client that came to me, I took them on. How did I get clients? I mean, I really hate to say it, but it sort of just happened. But I can explain some ways that I've used to get clients as well. So it sort of just happened because the part of my business is doing outreach for my clients and getting them links to their website placed on other websites. And so I'm just organically, I do outreach once a week, and I reach out to probably 40 plus websites a week. So I'm naturally reaching out to editors, content managers, CMOs, et cetera. And those are all the people who hire someone like me to write or help with strategy or whatever. And so I sort of naturally was connecting with them because I had to do that as part of my job. So it sort of grew organically, but as things weren't growing organically, I then did a few things. Like I did some outreach on LinkedIn where I searched for people who lived in San Diego, but who also went to my college, University of Vermont. So then I had like this sort of immediate rapport of like, we both live in San Diego and we went to UVM and we're both in marketing. How crazy. I definitely didn't plan this. We should work together. And I ended up connecting with someone in that initial outreach who we now send referral work to. And then just like general cold outreach to companies that I would like to work with. Upwork is really hard because there's so many people who are offering work for such a low price. So even if your work is really good quality, but I think even if you know, like just start with who you know, start with your immediate network, start with old bosses, old coworkers, even old professors. Don't hesitate to reach out to people. It can be really scary because you're afraid, you know, of getting a no, but like at the end of the day, the absolute worst that can happen is they say no or they ignore you. And really, it's a numbers game. The more people you reach out to, the more likely you are to be able to bring on clients. And it might not be them who's a client, but they might know someone. And that warm intro is everything to be able to have someone connect you. An old coworker of mine was working at a digital agency, and a client had been working with them, but the client was no longer happy and left. And somehow, I don't know how she connected us, but she did. And I ended up bringing them on, and they ended up being a retainer client for almost our entire trip, which was a large chunk of change each month just from that one client. And that was just because she referred them to me. So like really, the phrase "your network is your net worth" is like, it's so true. And you just have to be willing to reach out, and people are actually very responsive and they want to help you, especially people that know you. And if you're new, they want to support you as much as they can. You just have to be willing to ask for that support.
Yes, share your voice. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so thank you everyone for staying on. I know we went a couple of minutes over time, but thank you everyone for joining us in this hour. I learned a lot. I'm excited to continue to see what Jessica is sharing with the world. Jessica, why don't you take us out with some food for thought? Let us know how we can get in touch with you if you want to refresh our memory with what you're offering, so that people can be involved in your work. And then have a great day, everyone.
Yeah. Food for thought. Like people said to me when I told them I was traveling, like, I wish I could do that. And that was really the inspiration for the book that I'm going to be pitching to publishers. Follow me on Instagram. That's where I announce all those things. So whenever the book does go get published, and my response was, you can. I'm not like a special person in terms of like, I had a very normal upbringing, like super standard middle class, went to a public high school, went to one college, then switched and went to another college. I worked at IHOP for way too long. I was a waitress for a long time. Like totally normal shit, guys. Like, and the only thing that makes me different is that I decided that I wanted to do it, and I went for it. And I firmly believe that we all have the power to choose what it is that we want. You can very much create your reality. I've done that. I continue to do that. And you all can do that on this call. And that just starts with making the first choice of like, I want to travel the world. I don't know where to start. Okay, I'm just going to research. I'm just going to start with 1 hour of research and then take it one little tiny baby step at a time. If you want to talk to me more about that or whatever, you can connect on Instagram. As I've said, that's really my main platform. I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. If you're looking to really find your voice on Instagram and really step into your power and start reaching people who need to hear what you have to say, that's what my new membership program is all about. 2 coaching calls a month, plus an Instagram support group, plus live Instagram audits. And right now it's only $18.99 a month. So if you sign up now, you get that price like for life, for as ever long as you want to be in the membership. And then otherwise, that lasts until Friday at midnight EST, Eastern time. And then it will be back up to $25.99 after that. And that's like my big thing right now. I want to get epic women, no offense to men, but mostly women is my focus right now, into that group. And I want you all to just be able to share your voice and have people hear it. So that's me. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, Jessica, for being here. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day, everyone.